Thanks for joining me in Sheffy's Sandbox. I'm April Dawn Scheffler, and welcome to another play date. Those of you watching on YouTube probably see that I've dyed my hair. So I'm going to try it out, see if I like the change, and if not, it grows out, right? So no harm. The last couple of weeks, I would say Scorpio season has lived up to its reputation and been pretty intense for me on the spiritual front. But I don't like to bring things to you guys like half baked. I like to at least have some type of not answer, right? But some type of perspective, at least that I'm comfortable with, that feels like progress before I share. And I feel as though that step is coming. It's soon for me. I feel like there are just a few more pieces that I need together before I'm actually able to get a bigger perspective on what's been going on in my life. So I wanted to keep it light in the meantime and tell you this synchronicity that happened regarding cats. I have a Patreon where there for a while, and I still do it now, but there for a while I was doing frequent videos. And the time of day that I found the energy was usually on my way to work. I'm a projector, and so sometimes my energy is very limited. And so first thing in the day can often be when I can tap into energy the most. So I would record videos for my Patreon people, and I am sharing it with you guys. Just please forgive the road noise if you can. And then after I'll play that clip, I will have a response that my friend Courtney created on her YouTube channel. And so I think it's beautiful how it played together. I had asked her for the video a good while back, thinking I wanted to use it for the podcast, but I think it got lost in her direct messages or something. The timing wasn't right, apparently. So that was a good while back. I have since recently asked her about it again. And this time the ball got rolling. And while this was kind of falling into place, it was just reinforced to me that this is a perfectly timed episode, because I cannot tell you how many references I have heard about cats coming into people's lives here lately. And it's beautiful. And so I think it's super relevant. And I would love to hear your comments afterwards about the connection. I'm not going to spoil any of it now, but what you think about the nature of cats and their mission here on this world. All right, enjoy, and I will talk to you soon. Hey guys, happy Wednesday to you. The moon, which as I've been learning determines like the emotional weather for the day, for society in general, is in Gemini. So the affirmations I've been reading in this book, Moon Sign, which I highly recommend the book, some of the affirmations it has you to say so that you're working with the moon in Gemini the best you can are things like, I am able to communicate effectively, which is completely different from how I often feel like I'm just bumbling along. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I can affirm I communicate effectively. I am smart, because this is working with your beliefs about your ability to think and communicate. So some of us, when we were younger, we may have been taught that we were stupid, or even if it wasn't said that in those specific words, there was a sense that there were areas where we weren't all that smart or able to soak in information. Maybe it was a second grade teacher that kind of said that you weren't all that great at math. And sometimes we hold on to those beliefs. Okay, so I completely got off topic. But anyway, happy moon in Gemini today. Wow. What I was wanting to talk to you today about were dreams. My daughter was telling me about this fantastic dream she had this morning. And what it was is that let me give you a little bit of backstory. She's been dealing a lot with guilt and this concept of sin and being a bad person and how can she forgive herself. It's just been like the wheels over and over, same thing. It's kind of gotten boring as a parent, because I feel like I'm giving her like all this fantastic advice and she's just ruminating on it and not able to let it go. But she had this dream and she was doing something, and I can't go into a lot of the details of the dream because then it would be talking about the specific instance that she felt bad about. But anyway, she and the other co-perpetrator were in this dream together, and one of the persons that she had wronged, they walked in as security. And they realized, these two guys, when they walked in as security, that everyone was a criminal. And so I'm already putting, things together. And she's like, but that's not the end of my dream. They ended up being like 40% bad, and she was like putting it out into percentages. And then ended up looking like a video game. And it was saying like game over. And then afterwards there was like, it came across on the screen like a little message from the video game. We could have used more cats. I'm like, wait, like as in dogs and cats? And she's like, yes. And so I told her in my little, what do you call it, armchair psychologist way, I said it kind of plays in beautifully with how I've been telling you I view life, in that we choose, life can be considered something like a video game, in that we choose our avatars, we choose our characters, the people we want to play, we choose our families, our groups, and we have lessons that we want to live, we have things we want to accomplish in this lifetime. And then afterwards we regroup, like what did we learn and what do we want to do differently. And I was like, here is such a great lesson. For one thing, it emphasized what I had been telling you all along, is that everyone has done things that they're not proud of. Like if you're going to bring in the police, everyone has sinned. Like everyone's done something they don't feel is part of their best selves. So whenever security comes in, they could be a little overwhelmed because they'd have to arrest everybody. So it's just a matter of learning, okay, that didn't feel good. That's not the kind of person that I want to be. I'm going to use that as a lesson and move on. And I said, and so that's really cool part of your dream. Another part is that so I used my little dream analysis. What are 3 words that you would use to describe cats? And she said, cuddly. And I know, Courtney, you're loving this. Cuddly, fierce, and lovers of yarn. And she's like, that's what cats should be known for. They should be known as lovers of yarn from here on out. And so I'm like, okay, great. What I think is really cool is that you're not having to die in order to get the lesson. That there needed to have been more love and more fierceness, maybe more fierce love. and more yarn. I'm not sure about that part, but so yeah, she's like, wait, are you telling me dreams can help us with our lives now, with living our lives? I'm like, of course they can. Of course they can. So I figured you guys might have enjoyed the fierce, loving lovers of yarn, and maybe you see that as an invitation to bring that into your video game today a little bit more. Okay, so that was the video I had recorded for my Patreon group. Now let's listen to Courtney on her channel, and I'll put the link in the show notes where you can click on her channel to subscribe. I just love her.
All right, everybody, hang in there. This is going to have a lot of moving parts. It will incorporate the dragon theme that we're talking about this month. It will also incorporate spiritual hypnosis, of course, and it also is a really neat introduction into that you can have a missing puzzle piece for years, and then someone else can fill in that puzzle for you, and vice versa. So there are a lot of elements to this story, and this is where we're going to start. I have this really amazing student, a soul empowering hypnosis student. Her name is April, and April has a really wonderful Patreon page, and I will make sure to link to that. She also has a really wonderful YouTube channel, and I was recently interviewed on her podcast, and of course that's on YouTube if you like YouTube, etc., etc. So she was talking recently to her Patreon subscribers. I am proud to be one. That's Dragon Step 1. So she has different tiers in her Patreon, and her graphic, her icon for her Patreon is a rose with a dragon head. And it's so beautiful, like a combination of those two things interlaid over each other. And it's so beautiful. And then the top tier, I think there are just 2 tiers right now. The top tier is called Thunder. I didn't realize this. April taught this to me. A pack of dragons is called a thunder. So she, on her own, before I've been talking about any of this, is really into dragons on her own. I feel like this is an important thing to say because we're about to connect these things together with another person. She is one of my one-on-one clients. She is very amazing, and she's connected to the dragons too. And I haven't seen her in 3 years, and she just had one of her follow-up sessions a few days ago. And so like I'm realizing that a lot of people have these connections to dragons, but it's just not that common for us to talk about it. So April has an adorable daughter. She's like a mini me of April. And her daughter has this dream, and April is good at dream analysis. And so her daughter's telling her about it, and it's like a little bit of an anxiety dream. And April says to her daughter, you know, what could, well, actually, I'm not sure this is the question, but essentially the question was something like, what could have made it even better? Like, how could it have gone better? And then her daughter says, quote, we could have used more cats. like it would have been better for everybody in the dream if there had been more cats. And of course, my cat, I'm sure, was like, oh, of course, always. That goes without saying. So then April is saying to her daughter, well, what are some of the characteristics of cats? Because she's, you know, helping her work through this dream analysis, this dream meaning what can be learned. And so she says that cats are cuddly, right? Cats are fierce. So that's dragon energy right there also, that you've got a lot of love and a lot of power. And then she says, and are lovers of yarn. And so April's like, you know, I understand the cuddly part and the fierce part. And she's like, I'm wondering, you know, what's so important about lovers of yarn? Because I think that these are the top 3 things that her daughter wanted people to know about the cats: cuddly, fierce, lovers of yarn. And so I wrote to April on the Patreon, and I was like, I know exactly what lovers of yarn means. So I'm now making this video to keep that promise, which was a few days ago, to tell her what lovers of yarn means. Cut to this other client who is also connected to the dragons, which I didn't even know, but I'm not surprised at all. This woman, I don't know. I don't necessarily want to say her first name because I know that April doesn't mind me talking about her, but I don't know that my client would be okay with me talking about her. I think it'll be okay if I call her the magical accountant. So that's what I call her to my husband all the time. I'm like, the magical accountant, and she really is. And so she is nearing retirement, like mid 60s, and she works 90-hour, 100-hour days, and she's been doing this for decades. That is dragon energy if I have ever heard it. She's got a photographic memory, works like nobody's business. I mean, that's amazing. 90 or 100-hour days. And she's channeling, she's flowing. She's got soul energy going all the time. And the way that I met her, gosh, again, I told you guys there'd be a lot of moving parts here. Here we go. Let me give you this sentence first. This magical accountant, who I didn't meet until 3 years ago, 2018, is indirectly the reason that I am an LBL hypnosis practitioner, that I even heard of LBL, that my soul empowering hypnosis that has developed out of this really interesting combination of LBL and QHHT and past life regression, like all of it really ties back to her. So she introduced one of my book club members to Michael Newton's books. She said, and I think this is an open story, he won't care if I say his name. His name is Kevin. So the magical accountant says to Kevin years ago, you have to read Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. They're amazing. He reads them. They are amazing. Years later, he comes to one of my book clubs. He tells me about Michael Newton for the very first time. So he's my exposure. But then when he and I were meeting later, he told me about this magical accountant who had given him, or I don't know if she gave him the books or told him to read the books. Either way, she gets credit. So she's now one of my clients. So something that she started years ago has now come full circle to where she's able to receive magical hypnosis sessions from a person who is only this magical because of her passing the word along about LBL. Now, also the way that she and I connected was back in 2018. I was starting to grow up. My business is getting bigger. I wasn't being so cheap. So I was like, I really need to make a wish for a magical accountant. I've got way too much going on with with income and expenses, and like, it's just, and you know, I'm busy with clients. And so I just need somebody who's really good at this and knows what they're doing. I really need a magical client. So not magical client, a magical accountant. And so I, you know, send out this wish to the universe. While I'm sending out the wish, they're like, Kevin told you about one years ago when you were like 2 years ago when you were having lunch. Contact her. So I write to Kevin. I'm like, who's the magical accountant? Gives me her contact information. I write to her. She immediately writes back and she's like, happy to help. Let's do it. And so that's how she had her first couple of sessions. And we connected in that way. And so she had her first couple of sessions in 2018. I can't remember if it was the first session or the second session, but as part of that, I'm embarrassed to say this, one of the people that I love so much in the world had just irritated me, like either that day or the day before the magical accountant session. And it was dumb that I was even irritated by what happened, but I was irritated for a while about it. Like, you know, it wasn't like I'm irritated for 30 seconds. It was for hours or even a day. And I was still irritated. And I'm sitting there during the session, and she, as part of her session, the magical accountant decides to send out love to the entire world. Now, she's not saying that's what she's doing. She's doing it in her own experience. While I'm sitting there on the couch, I end up receiving this massive amount of love and perspective shifting love. And in an instant, I'm like, it is so silly to be upset with that friend. Like, I need to knock it off. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. And to this day, I've never been annoyed with that friend since then. It permanently shifted. And then the magical accountant told me what she had done. And I was like, whoa, like that really worked, because that just changed my entire perspective on what I had been so annoyed about. So fast forward, that's in 2018. I don't remember a lot of details from the hypnosis sessions that I facilitate because I'm also in the zone with you guys. And so like the next day, it's all groggy, even one day later, and especially 3 years later. For me to remember that experience tells you how significant, how profound it was. Another reason it's very significant, another key piece of this video right now, is that the magical accountant really doubts herself. Like, she doesn't really know how magical she is. She doesn't know how powerful she is. And so when that happened in the session, I think it was also something where the universe was validating for her that what she is doing is real and makes a difference. And no, she's not making it up in her inner experience. That was palpably felt by me, received by me, and I now love this friend forever and ever. And it was because of that moment of love that she sent. So then a few days ago, we're in 2021 now, Magical Accountant comes back, has a follow-up session. We've had 3 years apart. And we're talking about that part because it was so important to me. She still remembers it. And she's like, I have doubt. And I'm like, shouldn't have doubt. That was amazing. And then she describes to me what the experience looked like to her at that time. Here's where the lovers of yarn comes in. So she is describing that as she is sending love to me, it's like a string. Love from her or her soul to me, string 1. Then from me, all the strings of love that go out to everybody that I know. Then all of those people who have just received those strings of love, they then send out strings to everybody that they love, and so on and so forth, until the entire world looks like it is a ball of yarn covered in strings, goosebumps, of love. And so she tells me that story where she's like, it's like a ball of yarn, strings of love, connecting everything. And then this little girl has this dream. What is she talking about? Fierce love, right? They are cuddly, they are fierce, they are lovers of yarn. And to me, in that moment, I'm like, oh, ball of yarn. That is the love that we all send to each other, and we connect to each other throughout the entire world. So that little girl is onto something, because that really, we could have used more cats. Like, could have used more love, could have used that ball of yarn that connects our hearts to everybody. And then the world is a better place. So I'm trying to think if there's anything more that I need to say about dragons. I did get to find out the Magical Accountant, her dragon's name. I didn't even know until that session a few days ago that she was really connected to them. And then she was like, oh, I have a dragon. I'm like, oh. She's like, and this is his name. I'm like, oh. So yeah, so I had no idea. But of course, like, it's one of those things that now that I know, I'm like, oh, of course. Anyway, so I know that that was a lot to keep track of, but I really love the idea that April and the Magical Accountant will probably never meet each other, but they are still filling in important puzzle pieces for each other. The Magical Accountant had no idea she was ever going to help create this spiritual hypnotherapist that she would then be having sessions with by way of telling her friend about Michael Newton, who then told me about Michael Newton. So that's also a good example of the strings of the ball of yarn, where it's like there are these threads that we are connecting to and from each other as we live our loving, helpful, education rich, because we keep telling each other about all of these wonderful resources. We are connecting and creating all of these threads and weaving this rich tapestry. They just gave me this really interesting sentence. It's like, we are weaving a rich tapestry with love and information that, should we ever need it, is a safety net, should we ever need it, and is also a trampoline, should we ever want to use it. Beautiful. I think that's where we're going to end. I'll see you tomorrow. Please subscribe. See you tomorrow. Bye.